On Wednesday morning, a massive wall of mud and rock collapsed into a river high in the Himalayas, on the border between Nepal and Tibet. Within minutes, entire villages downstream simply weren't there anymore. As of the most recent count, at least 160 people are confirmed dead, and hundreds more remain missing, including dozens of foreign tourists from the United States, Britain, Australia, Canada, and beyond. Scientists studying the disaster now believe a glacier broke away high above the valley, falling and triggering, or at least dramatically amplifying, the landslide that followed. This is a still unfolding disaster, and the numbers are changing by the hour. Today, we're breaking down what actually happened, why a glacier collapse can turn into a catastrophic flood this fast, and why this fits a pattern we've been tracking across the world's glacier systems all year. No guessing, no dramatizing, just the facts, the science, and the real stakes. According to Reuters, a huge wall of mud and rock appeared to collapse into a river on the Himalayan border of Nepal and China's Tibet region on Wednesday, August 26, 2026, triggering catastrophic flooding on the Nepali side. The disaster struck along the upper section of the Trishuli River, specifically the Botte Koshi River, which originates in Tibet before flowing into Nepal, devastating dozens of settlements across the Rasua and Nuwakot districts, with Reuters and the Kathmandu Post also reporting flooding effects extending into the Dading and Gorkha districts north of Kathmandu. Death toll figures climbed rapidly and repeatedly throughout the day, a pattern we've seen before with major disasters where initial, on-the-ground counts get revised as search teams reach more affected areas. Early Reuters. Reporting cited at least 9 confirmed deaths. Within hours, that figure rose past 95. By the time NBC News and Al Jazeera filed their most recent updates, reviewed for this video, the confirmed death toll stood at 157 to 160 people, according to multiple outlets citing Nepali officials, with authorities on both sides of the border cautioning that the number was likely to keep rising as search and rescue operations continued. Given how quickly this figure has moved within a single day, any number we cite here should be understood as a snapshot of a genuinely still developing situation, not a final count. According to Time, citing Nepal's tourism board, 403 people were reported missing as a direct result of the flooding, including 341 foreign nationals and 62 Nepali citizens. Based on figures compiled from several travel companies, Time reported that of those missing, 133 were confirmed to be Indian nationals, 47 from the United States, 34 from Australia, 33 from Britain, 24 from Canada, and 19 from Malaysia. The U.S. Embassy in Nepal issued a warning to American citizens in the region following the disaster. This scale of foreign tourist involvement reflects the area's popularity as a trekking and border crossing region, situated along a major route connecting Nepal to Tibet. The disaster wasn't confined to Nepal. According to Al Jazeera, citing China's official Xinhua news agency, a mudslide struck the Gairong port area on the Chinese side of the border, a key land crossing between the two countries, cutting off roads, communications, and power connections in the surrounding Shigatse region. Chinese authorities reported at least 3 confirmed deaths in Tibet, with Chinese state media separately citing 265. People missing specifically in Gairong County, Chinese President Xi Jinping ordered what state media described as all-out efforts to search for the missing, while also calling for strengthened monitoring and early warning systems specifically to help prevent what he termed secondary disasters, additional hazards that can follow an initial catastrophic event. This is the detail that connects this disaster directly to the pattern of glacier-related hazards we've spent much of this year documenting on this channel. According to CNN, a group of scientists reviewing the disaster believe a glacier may have broken off and fallen into the valley below, an event that either triggered or significantly compounded the landslide that followed. CNN spoke with Daniel Sugar, director of the Environmental Science Program at the University of Calgary, and Ben Ayers, a Nepal-based journalist for Outside Magazine, who discussed the disaster's mechanics in detail as part of the network's ongoing coverage. If confirmed, this would place this disaster within a specific, well-documented category of Himalayan hazard, one that combines elements we've discussed separately on this channel when covering Alaska's Barrier Arm landslide risk and the broader research into surging glaciers worldwide. A glacier breaking away from a steep mountainside can behave similarly to the kind of ice-supported slope collapse we explained regarding Barrier Arm, where a glacier's physical mass had been bracing unstable terrain in place. When that ice suddenly gives way at a high enough elevation, the resulting mass of ice, rock, and debris can pick up enormous speed and volume as it descends. And if it enters a river valley, the way this event apparently did, it can trigger a catastrophic flash flood far downstream within minutes, leaving essentially no time for warning or evacuation. Adding another layer to the disaster's still developing scientific picture, Nepal's foreign minister, Shishir Kanal, told the country's parliament that initial reports suggested an earthquake in the area could have triggered an avalanche that then caused the floods, according to the Weather Network's reporting, citing local Nepali media. Wikipedia's ongoing documentation of the disaster cites a U.S. Geological Survey catalog entry for a magnitude 4.4 earthquake recorded approximately 77 kilometers north-northwest of Kadari, Nepal, in the same general border region. It's worth being appropriately cautious here, since this connection is described as an initial theory, relayed through a government minister, rather than a confirmed scientific finding at the time of this recording. But a moderate earthquake, shaking already unstable, glacier-supported terrain at high elevation, is a genuinely plausible trigger mechanism for exactly the kind of slope failure scientists are describing. Beyond the human toll, the disaster caused substantial damage to Nepal's infrastructure. According to Reuters, citing Nepal's energy ministry, 430 megawatts of electricity supply were affected, mostly from hydroelectric projects, representing more than 12% of the country's total national hydropower capacity of 3.2 gigawatts. Roads, bridges, and power projects across the affected districts were swept away entirely in places, according to multiple outlets, severing communication and transportation links precisely when they were most needed for rescue operations, a pattern we've discussed before regarding disasters that strike remote mountainous terrain most directly when covering the landslide-blocked roads that delayed rescue access following Indonesia's Flores Island earthquake earlier this month. CNN's coverage included satellite imagery comparisons of the town of Timur, located approximately 3 kilometers from the Rasua border checkpoint connecting to Girong Port. Images taken August 14th show the town intact. Images from August 26th, the day of the disaster, show a dramatically swollen river with structures along its banks, either heavily damaged or completely washed away. A stark visual record of how thoroughly the flood reshaped this specific stretch of the valley within a single day. Nepal's Prime Minister, Balendra Shah, confirmed police and military forces had joined rescue operations and specifically instructed authorities to move residents living in lower elevation areas along the river to safer ground, warning that people along the river should exercise extra caution and remain alert, given the continued instability in the region. According to Reuters, this reflects an active, ongoing concern that the initial disaster could be followed by further flooding or landslides as the affected terrain continues settling. Search and rescue operations continue on both sides of the Nepal-Tibet border, with Nepali and Chinese authorities coordinating efforts despite significant communication and infrastructure damage, complicating the response in the immediate disaster zone. Given the scale of missing persons reports, particularly the hundreds of foreign nationals still unaccounted for, embassies and consular services from multiple countries are expected to remain closely engaged with Nepali officials in the coming days as identification and rescue efforts continue. Scientists, including those consulted by CNN, are likely to continue investigating the precise sequence of events, the glacier collapse, the possible earthquake trigger, and how these factors combine to produce a disaster of this scale, work that will take time to fully establish beyond the initial, still developing theories currently being reported. A disaster of this scale, unfolding in a matter of minutes in a remote, high-altitude border region, is a difficult story to fully process, even as the numbers continue to climb throughout the day this video was written. What makes it especially relevant to everything we've covered on this channel this year is the apparent role of a collapsing glacier, a hazard mechanism we've now documented across Alaska's fjords, its recurring glacial floods, and the global research into surging glaciers capable of damming rivers and triggering avalanches without warning. The Himalayas contain some of the largest concentrations of glacial ice outside the polar regions, sitting directly above densely populated valleys, and, as this disaster demonstrates, above major international trekking and border routes as well. Whatever the final confirmed sequence of events turns out to be, this disaster is a stark, immediate illustration of exactly the kind of glacier-driven risk scientists have spent this year. Warning is becoming both more consequential and, in a warming climate, harder to predict. We'll keep tracking this story closely as more confirmed information becomes available, along with every other major seismic, volcanic, and extreme weather event happening around the world right now. Subscribe if you want to see the next update. Drop a comment and tell me, had you heard about the risk of glacier collapse in the Himalayas before today? See you in the next one.